And that leads us to step 5, right? I mean, now we have all this information. What the heck do you do with it, right? And you know, you and I will go back and forth all the time. Like, you know, is it step 3? Is it step 4? Is it step 5 that's most important? And it's probably all 3 of them, though, quite frankly. But I think you and I can both agree that armed with this information from step 3 and 4, step 5, failing to do a real deep dive into the debriefing of what happened in that focus group is a big mistake, because it needs to be deconstructed.
Well, you bring up a good point, and I have personal experience with this problem. Having gone through a focus group as the lead trial lawyer, it's exhausting. It's sort of like taking a 4-hour law school exam, and the thought of going through all the notes, all the poster boards that we've created, all the material that was generated is sort of the functional equivalent of having to retake that test. You don't want to do it. You resist it almost to the core. It's a hard thing to do. And, you know, I have to almost force myself to do it. And, you know, there's been times after I've done a focus group on one of my cases that will actually get you on a telephone. And, you know, it's not that you have special magical insight into what's on that poster board, but we can help control and force the process to its completion, because it's so easy to resist on our own.
I know you have said to me before, and it's a very good way to describe it. It's the equivalent of the jurors are in there deliberating, and you saying to yourself, "Oh my God, how did I miss X?" You know, or talking to them after the verdict, and they say, "Well, you know, we thought you did a good job, except you never told us why." And you're thinking, well, damn, how the hell did I miss that? That this process and then the deconstruct after is so illuminating and educational, because it really starts to help you work out all those previously unanswered questions. It fills in the holes, right? You quite literally go into a conference room in your office or whatever space you have, and we put these boards up, sticky all over the walls in order, and I've seen you move the order. Like, you know, I'm putting this one over here, and I'm doing this, and we'll talk, and we'll brainstorm, and it's really an intensive brainstorming session is what it is. And you start and you sit there, okay, we started with a hypothesis. We said this was our theory of the case. We've had this intense, exhausting, emotional focus group session, and now we're here to take the two together and say, did the testing work? Did the experiment prove or disprove the hypothesis? And how do we have to change it to go forward?
And it's not always that it's obvious, but it's always something. And sometimes it's about, all right, I was going to lead with this fact, but now I know that fact, well, they sort of cared about that. It wasn't a big deal to them. They really like this fact over there that was on the bottom of my list before, and it's flipped it upside down. And when I was moving papers around, that's what I'm doing. I am giving it a visual representation in my conference room as I contemplate what the order of the trial is. What's my closing argument? What's my opening statement? What questions am I going to ask on cross-examination? And how long am I going to stay on that chapter?
We could have had one of the world's worst jury panels in that sexual assault case involving the uncle and the niece. I mean, there must have been 25 people that had been victims of sexual assault on that panel. I mean, you and I started looking at each other going, what the hell's going on here, right?
It was like the Twilight Zone.
and every one of the jurors had something to talk to the judge about privately in chambers with the lawyers and tell the story. And half of these stories sounded like the frickin' facts of our case, right? But I'll never forget how confident we were about that case. And it was based on the debriefing and deconstruct in step 5, where we looked at each other and we latched on to how strongly the jurors reacted when they came up with the idea that immediately after this alleged sexual assault occurred in the attic of they had a playroom above the garage, and immediately after this sexual assault occurred in the playroom of the attic in this garage, the families went. It was around Halloween. They went to get pumpkins, and they went to an apple orchard to get cider and donuts and pumpkins. And they were so bothered that the girl wanted to not just sit right next to the defendant, but like was upset when she couldn't and sat on his lap during the hayride. It was just so problematic for them and so disconnected with the rest of this girl's story about how afraid she was, how uncomfortable she was, and it wasn't the facts. I mean, we knew those facts. We knew about the apple orchard. We knew about the car ride there, but it was the depth in which those jurors were bothered by it that led us down the path of not just incorporating that into the theory of our case, but really emphasizing it to the point where it became sort of the lead point of our theory of the case in that case. And of course, it was the lead point in winning it.
Let me put that in the abstract. You said confident. You said we relied on the logic of our argument and the emotion that the juries had. We went right back to the triangle. And that's what that last step is. We walk into a courtroom with confidence, authority, ethos to say, we are sure that this is what it is. And why are we sure that's what it is? Not because we have convinced ourselves through some internal process. We have external validation of what we're about to do in that courtroom. And sometimes for me, the hardest thing to do is still continue to resist my own bias to fall back to the old way or my original theory or theme of the case, where I know the focus group did that, but I really still think that it's this. And I can't do that with confidence because I know that I don't have the validation for it. We have the authority to speak about our case, to make the logical argument, and deliver it in a way that capitalizes on the emotional response that we already know is going to happen.